All right. Next up, we're going to talk about Fantano. Title of the post video is There's Too Much Music, which has been something I've been feeling as well as of late. I don't know exactly what direction he's going to go in, but I fully agree. Just from the title alone, like there's just entirely too much music being released, too much music out there, just too much in general. Like there's no more gatekeeping, there's no more barriers, so anybody can put out anything at any point at any time. It's just too much. Can't keep up with it. Too much noise. Makes it worse, quite honestly. But let's hear what he's got to say.
Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. Getting busier because there's too much music, because there's too much damn music being uploaded to the internet. According to a music radar study talked about in...
Yeah, I actually did read this article. The title was very eye-catching, surprising. There's more music released in a single day in 2024 than the entire year of 1989. One day this year and one day there's more music released than we used to get in 365 days. And we still have 365 days in a year, which is crazy.
NME, apparently more music was released in a single day in 2024 than in the whole of 1989, which I'm not personally an expert on the number of singles and album releases over the course of every year of popular music up until that point. But if it's the case for 1989, it's got to also be the case for some years leading up until that point, or at least close. But yes, according to this study right now, the music creation economy is exploding. This report also states that there was a 12% increase in the number of music creators between 2021 and 2022, bringing the number to 75.9 million. This study also predicts, if current trends continue, that this number will more than double by the end of the decade, with an estimated total of 198 million music creators. I will push back on this for a hot...
I actually do not believe that it's going to double. I don't think being a music creator, as easy as it is. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on how you define being a music creator. If you just put out one song, does that automatically make you a music creator? I guess technically yes, but I wouldn't consider that being like somebody who's really a career musician or an aspiring career musician. So I don't necessarily believe that that number is going to double, because there's still a finite amount of people that want to do this as a living, or even want to try to do this as a living. But in terms of just putting out a song, very possible. But actual music creators, I don't see that doubling.
Second though, and say maybe using like a pandemic year as the jumping point in, you know, your assessment here with that percentage increase there might not be the best, considering there were so many people who were like stuck at home sitting there thinking, let me start that.
This is the fact. Music was one of the biggest risers in terms of, you know, the pandemic and the industry as a whole. I think, what was it, Guitar Center or Fender also said that they sold the most amount of guitars that they ever did in the history of their existence in the COVID pandemic year. Why? Because people were stuck at home, because people weren't working, because people were just finding ways or needing things to do. And like a lot of people may have had, you know, thoughts or intentions of one point in their life of being a musician, because let's face it, most people have. Now you got a lot of time on your hands. Why not? Why not just do it? Why not just give it a try? Because you're at home anyways. So yes, we saw a wide kind of spike in terms of music creation and people buying instruments and people learning instruments, learning music and putting music out in general. But that is hopefully kind of a once in a lifetime occurrence for most people. And like, we won't have to experience many moments like that before. Now things have gone back. Now you can go out. Now you can do all other things like that can distract you. You have work, you have parties, you have, you know, gatherings, you have all this other stuff that we just did not have going on at the, you know, extent that we normally do during that time period. So like, I agree with him there. That's not a fair assessment to say that we will continue that when you start at that point, because obviously that is a very strong outlier in terms of like normal behavior for people.
Music project I've always been wanting to get out there, but I digress. That's still an insane amount of musicians and songs and albums, more than any one human can consume and fully appreciate. And it's all happening within a single day, over and over and over and over for year after year. This NME article goes on to also say that it had been previously reported that in 2023, 120,000 tracks were being added to Spotify and other streaming services each day for an annual total of 43 million songs. What do you as a music fan and music appreciator even do in the face of that? It's
43 million songs. What? 43 million songs. 120,000 songs a day. Like what? Like what do you even do? How do you even break through? How do you even find shit that you like? Like, as much as, you know, I have issues with streaming, I have issues with Spotify, Apple Music, all those streaming services, like most people do, and most musicians in particular do, especially playlisting and how it works. There's really only one way you can truly break through these days, and that is with playlisting. Like, if we're allowing you to post 120,000 songs on average a day, the only way you can like properly give these songs attention, have people find them, is for us to create playlists. And while that creates a whole nother set of issues for people getting seen and heard and breaking through and just the overall dynamics of labels, you do need some sort of gatekeeping. And while there has been playlisting, I can only imagine where it would be without it. Music is so disposable these days, and getting 120,000 different versions of music and songs just proves that point. It's just how disposable it is, and why it is incredibly hard nowadays for a musician or an artist to make a living and to make money off of this and doing it and make a career out of it, because you are competing with an insane amount of other people.
It's enough to give you option paralysis. And you know what? Honestly, I understand why your average person might just log on to their streaming platform of choice and then just pop on some random playlist they vibe with that gets updated every once in a while.
Exactly. That's as much as we hate playlists, as much as musicians hate TikTok, as much as we hate like just the kind of current state of music in the industry and how people get seen and heard, and like how like these streaming services gatekeep. At the end of the day, as a consumer, if you don't know what you're looking for, you just want to hear something new and good, and kind of with the death of blogs in general, you're just going to run to the latest Spotify playlist and just go based on what they say. Which has always been the case. How radio used to work. You listen to radio, whatever they played is what you heard and what you knew. And just like with radio, labels rig the game and pay streaming services to put their artists on. So really, it's just the old model refreshed with the new paint of face. A new face of paint. Just refresh with a new face of paint.
The alternative, just like sifting through this endless stream of songs and albums, like the vast majority of which are most likely not really worth your time. Even if we were to break these numbers down to some of their smallest percentage points and fractions, it's still too much damn music to listen to. It's impossible. This is less statistical. I'll say just in my own personal, very unique experience, being somebody who reviews and consumes and observes music full time is like a job. I'll say that at least from my perspective, it has seemed in recent years like things really have been ramping up in terms of the amount of music to sift through, the number of major or notable releases being dropped every year. And I'm not even talking about just like merely underground stuff. I mean, in terms of the kind of stuff the labels are pushing every year and putting out there and, building PR campaigns around, at least on some level. Like, I know this year I've put out a fair amount of very negative reviews, but honestly, some of the worst of the worst of the worst music I know I've come across at some point this year, I haven't even bothered talking about it. Like, there's a new Lil Xan album, there's a Skillet album, there's an Imagine Dragons record, there's a G-Eazy album, there's a Megan Trainor album, there's a Lil Mabu record, there's a Tones and I album, there's a album. I can't even keep up with all the terrible records dropping right now. I'm lucky I even reviewed the Katy Perry. And you know what?
I mean, he ain't wrong. As somebody who is kind of in a similar position as him, obviously at a much smaller degree and much smaller scale, I get a lot of music sent to us, a lot sent to me that I listen to, that I get on a daily basis. On a daily basis, my inbox gets absolutely full of new music, and it's almost impossible to keep up with. And that's even with a team of people that listen to music. It's just never ending. And like, I agree with him. I've never seen this degree of output. Like before, even when I first kind of started doing this, you get, artists popping up every few months with the new songs, new PR campaigns. Now you're getting those artists dropping songs with the whole PR output behind them every single month, every month. Just to build to hopefully an album. And even some artists that will never put an album, but they're putting out a single at an every month, every 2 month pace, just to kind of keep up with everybody else and their peers than what they're doing. It's insane because they feel like if you don't continue to put out music and be in their face, that you'll just get passed over, you'll get forgotten, and people move on to the next thing, which unfortunately is kind of a true fact and kind of aspect of the industry as a whole right now. We have no way of making music more valuable and more important to people. It is so disposable, so just here today, gone tomorrow, that you're just getting trash, quite honestly. And when you have to put out music at that kind of insane pace that people are having to, the quality ain't going to be great. It's just not going to be great. And there's very few artists out there in the game and the industry that can actually take time, take years away and go kind of like put a whole project together, a whole album, take their time, release it, and get actually good reception for. That's a very hard level for people to get to. And it's only getting smaller and smaller.
Complaining because I feel like on the flip side of that, there's also been an intense increase of records that are actually like kind of exciting and great and worthy of praise. And like, really the only issue and downside is that I wish I had more time to just sort of like, sit with them, not in preparation for a review, but just like kind of sit with them and enjoy them casually after I'm done reviewing them. Like, if you look at my scores this year, I've given out a fair amount of 9s, even a 10. I do feel like we've been enjoying an unseasonably great year for music. There's been a lot of stuff worth talking about, and even an inordinate amount of reviews where we hit 1 million views or just about 1 million views within 24 hours because they're just very big hyped releases. There have been a lot of records getting released on this level this year, and then on top of that, there's all of the independent and underground stuff that actually kind of like drives my excitement and passion for the most part. I feel like in previous years, I didn't need to actively keep in mind the need to set aside some focus for that kind of stuff, because in the past, it was more or less kind of staring me in the face. Like I had maybe 1 or 2 major releases to cover that week. And then, whatever time I had left over, I was like, okay, I'll just use that to play with whatever albums I'm actually genuinely interested in. But now I'm actually having to like cutaway reviews for some pretty major projects just in order to make room for some records that I'm actually excited about. Because if I were to start ignoring those albums, not only would it be difficult to make a year-end list of records I actually enjoy, but I would not be a very happy Anthony Fantano if all I had time for was like reviewing stuff that I thought was mid or sucked, or, just covering stuff because I know it's going to bring in views and that's it. So again, I know my personal experience here is my personal experience experience alone and is not shared by everyone, especially considering, like, not everyone has the job that I have. But I can at least say from my side, there is a serious kind of feeling of oversaturation.
Absolutely, completely oversaturated. That's what the music industry is these days. Like I said, the absolute insane degree and pace that music is coming out is unsustainable. There's no way that you're going to be able to find the best, most worthy songs to listen to. You're just going to kind of listen to whatever you hear on Reels, whatever you hear on TikTok, whatever you hear on these playlists, and just kind of be set out there. Yes, there are still some people out there, like kind of like ourselves, kind of getting more personalized tastemaker compilations and attention to things like on a much deeper level, but you just can't keep up. You just cannot keep up. It's just never ending. The deluge never stops. If we're talking about 120,000 songs a day, how many of those you think are actually good? Not that many, trust me. When you're putting out at that pace, you're not going to get very good music. And at the barrier of music, just not only just the barrier of putting out music, the barrier of actually making music is basically non-existent and gone. Anybody can get with a computer or even a phone could put a song together today and get it out. It just means you're just going to get a lot of trash. And that's probably why a lot of people feel like music and the quality of it has gone down so much. Well, yes, it has. Well, I won't say gone down, but you're just getting so much more of it that you're not going to get those big landmark releases. There's only few artists that can do that, and most of them that can do that came out before streaming became such a big aspect of our lives. I don't really know how artists that are like growing up and blowing up with streaming are able to kind of compare and compete and continue to put out music at a pace that their fans will be satisfied with. It's just a very never ending amount of content that, just like TV and movies and streaming, you just kind of get into this death scroll, death, whatever you want to say it, where you just can't get to everything, that you kind of just get paralysis and you just end up listening to the old favorite music that you listened to back in the day because it's there, it's comforting, and that kind of hurts music discovery and new artists the most. I've kind of tapped out of finding like new artists on my own because, again, if I ain't coming to my email, I ain't got time. It's just too much. Just too much. And how do you dig through and find that? Those days of SoundCloud pumping out gems are gone. The discovery features of Spotify and Apple are basically non-existent. It's just listen to our playlist. And other than that, I guess you just got to hope your sound goes viral on Reels or TikToks, which I don't think is sustainable for a career. So we're just in a very weird place in terms of music and industry. And like with this amount of music, yes, there's a lot of good stuff still. You just have to dig through so much shit to get to it, that the truly great stuff often gets overlooked. So I agree from 1,000%. There's just entirely too much music these days. And I don't really know a fix for that.